On this show, we love MedTech innovation, health tech, connected care. But what happens when the connection becomes the risk? On this episode, we're going to be talking about cybersecurity and what can really make or break your MedTech innovation success. Before we start, please make sure to hit the subscribe button. It is very important and very helpful to us. To talk about this important and exciting topic, I'm very happy to welcome Christian Espinosa, the founder and CEO of 𝗚𝘂𝗲𝘀. Welcome to a new episode of Amplifiz podcast. Good day to you, Christian. Welcome to the show. How are you?
I am doing well. Guillaume, how are you?
I'm good. So happy to have you. Before we talk about your business, before we talk about what matters to MedTech innovators in cybersecurity and why it's so critical, maybe give me a bit more background about yourself, your journey before founding the business.
Sure. I used to be in the United States Air Force. I was in the Air Force for about 6 years. I did cybersecurity in the Air Force, making sure classified secrets remain secrets, keeping the enemy from stealing our secrets. And then I did defense contracting work for a while. I worked for the Department of Homeland Security, auditing government agencies and doing cybersecurity for them. And then I did a commercial company I worked for where we made sure hackers could not hack into a commercial aircraft. We also did this for like military drones. So my background's been quite a bit with cybersecurity. And I started actually when I graduated college in 1993. So I've been doing this for, I guess, 32 years now. And then after that commercial job, I got into freelance work, not quite entrepreneurs, more solopreneur work, where I did penetration testing, which is trying to break into different environments. And I did training. I taught classes around the world globally on cybersecurity. And then I formed my first cybersecurity company in 2014. I sold it in 2020. And then I formed 𝗚𝘂𝗲𝗀𝘀 after that.
So why did you choose MedTech? Because obviously the cybersecurity is relevant to all industries. Why is MedTech important to you? Why healthcare specifically and MedTech?
With my first company, we got a contract with 𝗕𝗶𝗹𝗹𝗿, a French-based company. And that started my first experience with MedTech. They do in vitro diagnostics. And then after I sold that company, while I was working for the parent company, I developed 6 blood clots and almost died. So thanks to a medical device, a Doppler ultrasound, they were able to diagnose me very quickly and give me a course of treatment. And I'm still here because of MedTech. So I thought after that and after recovering from the blood clots and the treatment and all that it made sense, or this is the universe telling me, maybe I should take the experience from my first company and form a new company and focus on MedTech cybersecurity. Because I believe in MedTech, I believe in the advancements in healthcare, and I often think, what if that device that diagnosed me was recalled because of a cyber attack or gave a misdiagnosis? Then I wouldn't even be here.
That's crazy. Yeah, of course. Wow, that is for sure a very personal experience. I'm amazed by the amount of people working in our field that choose to commit to this mission for the reasons that you described, whether personal or their family or relatives and so on. Yeah, this is a pretty powerful story, and I'm glad that it worked out. And
me too.
Yeah, for sure.
It was definitely a process. Yeah. I went from running Ironman triathlons and traveling the world to basically being told I couldn't do anything I used to do. I couldn't work out. I couldn't travel. I couldn't sit in a hot tub. I couldn't really do anything I used to do. So it was a very low state of my life where I went through a lot of depression. But once I recovered from that and decided to reclaim my health and stop taking blood thinners, is really what that gave me the courage and the confidence to start a new business.
Wow, this is so inspiring. Kudos to you, sir. That's amazing. That's really nice.
Yeah, that's how you bounce back.
Yeah, we all have to. In this short span we have here called life, we better make the best of it. Yeah, that's for sure. Congrats. So cybersecurity. I have myself worked in MedTech for some years. To be fair, I was not on the tech product side either. I was more on the marketing side, the commercial side. But anyway, I have the perception that in MedTech, the topic of cybersecurity is often under discussed.
I think cybersecurity is still grossly overlooked when it comes to MedTech. Most people don't think about cybersecurity. It's starting to shift a little bit because it's now become mandated that you have to do all these cybersecurity requirements and meet all these specific items in order to get your device cleared and on the market. And unfortunately, most manufacturers find out about that too late in the development, like right before a submission. The regulatory affairs person going through a checklist says, "What did you do about cybersecurity?" They're like, "What do you mean? We didn't do anything." So then it causes a delay. So part of my company's mission, Blue Goat Cyber's mission, is to raise that awareness in the industry so MedTech innovators start designing their product with cybersecurity in mind. They start thinking about it earlier, because if they wait till later, it causes delays, it's more costly, it frustrates investors, and ultimately it may prevent that product from getting on the market.
Of course.
And the other part of my mission is to make sure, or to help as much as I can, that these new innovations that can really alter humanity in a great manner can get on the market as quickly as possible. So we want to help them get on the market, which is why recently here in Singapore, we joined MedTech Innovator for APAC, because we want to help the startups, avoid some of the mistakes that we see other startups making. And that's by raising that awareness.
Yeah, I understand. And a couple of questions, but I'll start with this one. You talked about, obviously, the regulator who is imposing that you need to have some checks. Can you elaborate a bit more on what kind of requirements are typically there in terms of cybersecurity? What are they expecting?
Yeah, so the requirements are, there's quite a few of them now. I guess if you're a MedTech innovator, the first thing you need to ask yourself is my device a cyber device? Which means really, does it have software and a way to connect to the device? And that second part, a way to connect to the device, is what throws a lot of people off. What that means is there any interface on your device? It could be a magnetic coil that you can use like NFC, like on a credit card, how you can tap. That counts as a way to connect to it.
Right.
It could be a USB port. It could be any type of connectivity. So if you have software in your device with any kind of connectivity, it's a cyber device. And then once that's determined, you've got to go through all the rigor required for a submission, which is looking at the software bill of materials, because developers borrow code from other places, and we have to track back where that original code came from that they borrowed and put into their code. That whole lineage we have to look at.
Wow.
And so that's one thing. And then there's testing. We'd have to hack into the device, try to break into it, and figure out how we got in and work with the manufacturer to fix that. There's looking at the source code to see if there's problems with the source code. There's other types of testing as well to make sure if the manufacturer says we don't have Bluetooth, we have to do negative testing to make sure Bluetooth is actually turned off. So there's a whole list of things. And it all boils down to ultimately patient safety. So what is the risk from a cybersecurity perspective to a patient? And that's ultimately what we're looking at. We're looking at the data disclosure as well, but really the focus is on patient safety. Because imagine if there's a surgical robot performing surgery on your spine and it is compromised somehow by a cyber attack, it could potentially paralyze you, right? So we look at it from that lens.
Now, in terms of what are the customers you are working with, you talked about the smaller startup, scale-up kind of companies. I imagine you're also supporting larger enterprises as well in MedTech.
Yeah, well, about 70% of our portfolio are startups.
Okay.
With this their first product they're bringing to market.
Okay.
And the other 30% are larger established companies that have a portfolio of products, and they need help with that entire portfolio of products. And then from a global perspective, about 40% of our clients are outside of the United States, in Asia, the Middle East, some in South America, in Europe, and the other 60% are in the United States. So we work with not just FDA. We work with global regulatory bodies. So if someone is trying to get in the United States, they might want to work with us for FDA clearance. We also work with people in the United States that want to go to Europe and get MDR clearance as well, as example.
Yeah, that's great. So in just over 3 years, you already built a global business. That's pretty impressive. Awesome.
Well, thank you. I had a business before, so I paid a lot of the dumb tax, as they like to say. So all the things I didn't do right in that business, I'm trying to do better in this business. I'm sure I'll pay dumb tax in this one too.
Yeah, we I guess we are all on this learning journey, but yeah, okay,
Right.
that's fair enough. I read on some of your article and content that there's a gap that you see sometimes between cyber risk, compliance, and innovation within MedTech or healthcare organization. Can you explain that gap for me? Because I'm not an expert. I would like to really have a good sense of what you mean by that.
I think it's really a mindset gap. Innovation is very quick. Compliance is known to be slow. And then there's a mindset that cybersecurity is going to slow down your innovation as well. So if we look at, we're in a highly regulated industry. So we have to have compliance, of course, which might slow down innovation a little bit. That's just the nature of our industry because we're dealing with patients and patient safety. We're not just producing some piece of software to put on the cloud and a dating app or something like that. Right. The risk is much less for that. And when we look at cybersecurity, and this is what we're hoping to shift in the industry, if you don't do cybersecurity early on, it costs you way more money at the end, and it delays your time to market because the FDA or MDR is going to reject your submission if you didn't do due diligence with cybersecurity. So we're trying to make a shift in the industry, or raise that awareness, as I was talking about, where people consider cybersecurity a discriminator and actually an accelerator to help them accelerate their product to market because it's supposed to be designed into the product, not bolted on later on. I mean, imagine building a house and you pour your concrete, you've laid your foundation, but you forgot the rebar. And you try to add the rebar later, it's obviously going to be more costly. And that's what ends up happening. A lot of people try to add cybersecurity later, and it's just like the scenario I gave you. The analogy is very costly. So in terms of compliance, we're highly regulated. In terms of innovation, of course, we want to expedite our time to market, but we are in a regulated industry, and cybersecurity can help speed that up if it's done properly. And that's what the mindset we're trying to shift. Most people think cybersecurity is a roadblock, but it's actually an accelerator if done properly.
Yeah, it makes sense. And so you talked about what's the right stage to bring cybersecurity on and make sure it's embedded early into the product ideation. So who are the main stakeholders you are usually working with, supporting in that implementation?
If someone comes to us early on, we're typically working with the CTO, the CEO, the founder, or whoever's managing their software development. If they come to us later on, like right before a pre-market submission, we are typically dealing with the regulatory affairs person on the team. With
health tech, but also in the traditional MedTech sense of the term, so the surgical, the imaging system, and everything else that happens in the OR, for example. We have now, obviously, a lot of connected devices. What are the main vulnerabilities that you see are happening?
Three main areas, I would say, for risk that we've noticed. One of them is that software bill of materials. It's basically a list of all the ingredients and where they came from that make up your software. A lot of companies simply don't know where the software came from that they borrowed. And what we've found is a lot of software developers will find somebody else's code on the internet, copy and paste it with default passwords in it, and put it into their product. So that is a major vulnerability because it's got passwords that are obviously exposed on the internet already, and the developer didn't even change the password. We notice that quite often. The second one is, I would say, weak authentication or lack of authentication. A lot of people that develop a medical device product, let's say you reboot the product and you want to go into administrator mode, it may ask for a password. Often the password is like admin123 still. So it's easy for somebody to guess that and get into administrator mode with that product. And the third item I think is a major vulnerability is really the lack of adequate testing from a cybersecurity perspective. For someone to test a product, they have to really understand from a medical device perspective, like all the interfaces, the technologies like DICOM, if it's imaging, for instance, and how the vulnerabilities with all those can play out. But what happens that we see very often, a lot of MedTech innovators will choose a cybersecurity firm to do testing that is not familiar with MedTech and the regulated space. So their degree of testing and degree of scrutiny doesn't meet the bar, basically.
See. Some of these devices are obviously then used by physicians, practitioners, and so on. How do you see the partnership between MedTech manufacturers and healthcare providers, and by that I mean hospitals and their practitioners? How do they need to collaborate on this cybersecurity topic as well, and how can they ensure that there's a best-in-class use through the entire product lifecycle?
I think there's a little bit of friction there because as a healthcare delivery organization, I'm purchasing this medical device that I don't have any administrative control over it. So what we've noticed are the healthcare delivery organizations are applying much more scrutiny from a security perspective before they purchase that device and put it on their environment. And there's friction because it's like at your house, you've got an IoT device, you may have a security camera or your refrigerator is on your home network or something. You have no idea what that device is doing. It could be recording you, it could be doing whatever. So it's like this weird situation where you want to trust that the device is doing what it's supposed to be doing, and yet it's on your environment and you don't really know. So the shift we are seeing, which is a good shift, is the medical device manufacturers and this is mandated, are supposed to have transparency, like what the cyber risks are with the device. They're supposed to label all of that. How the device operates, that software bill of materials I talked about is supposed to be publicly available if somebody wants it. So there's a lot more visibility about what the risks are putting this device on the environment. And then from an ecosystem perspective, we're starting to see a shift. It's a slow shift where instead of the hospitals thinking this is a med device and MedTech thinking that this is our client, basically the shift we're seeing is we need both of these to be secure, and we need to work together in order to make sure we have patient safety. It's been a slow shift, but I feel like we're finally getting there. Because if somebody compromises a medical device on a hospital environment, that can affect the patient at the hospital. If somebody compromises the hospital environment, it may take the medical device offline. So there's, it's an ecosystem that people need to work together with.
Yeah, of course.
And obviously, if there's an incident on a hospital, the hospital is going to be liable for it, and they're going to try to tell the MedTech innovator or the medical device manufacturer that they're liable. So there's a shared responsibility that we need to look at,
right?
Versus just kind of pointing fingers, which is what's happened in the past.
Yeah.
And I'm an advocate when I'm working with a MedTech innovator to ask them to reverse engineer like where they ultimately want to sell their product to, because that healthcare delivery organization may have more stringent requirements than the FDA, as an example, or MDR.
Yeah. And do you see a lot of, whether in Europe, in Asia, or in the US, most of the large hospital or mid-sized hospitals and clinic and so on, are they actually equipped with the right resources, talents, and teams to actually handle that aspect as well, security and checking all this is compliant?
No,
they don't.
No. My company has done penetration.
There was a bit of a bias in my question because I was under the strong impression I had the answer as well, but it's good to confirm it. Yeah, so please go ahead.
Yeah, well, I can validate that answer. We've done a lot of penetration testing against HDOs or healthcare delivery organizations, and we've got into every single one. We've broken into every single one of them to the point where we can access like devices in the operating room.
Oh my gosh.
We could turn the HVAC off. We could make an announcement for the entire hospital. So I consider hospital networks hostile networks. I know they're trying to improve, but it's a slow transition. And one of the challenges is they're public. I mean, people can come and go 24 hours in a hospital. So if you happen to leave a communications closet unlocked, somebody can walk in there and plug in a device. So it's very hard because it's not a closed facility. It's people come and go all the time. So there's that physical access. That's a challenge for the hospital. So I understand some of the vulnerabilities. And then also, my wife used to be a nurse, and she's confirmed what I've always believed, that there's simply not enough budget, not even for the nurses. The nurses are overworked. So if they don't have enough budget for the healthcare workers, they certainly don't have enough budget for IT and cybersecurity.
Right. So does it imply that you also work for healthcare providers? Are you supporting their business as well? We talked about MedTech quite a bit.
Yeah,
of course,
we can also help healthcare providers as well secure their environments. Yes.
I see. And you talk about their hostile network. That hostile network, I'm not sure I captured what you meant by that.
Yeah, I said we consider HDO environments, healthcare delivery environments, hostile from a cyber security perspective, meaning there's probably already a malicious actor on that environment. And it's just a matter of time before they pull the trigger for ransomware.
I see.
And when we say hostile, when we were looking at MedTech cybersecurity and a medical device, we have to make sure it has security to a degree that expects it to be deployed in a hostile environment. Like imagine like in a military setting, this device is going to be deployed somewhere where people are constantly going to be trying to shoot it and hit it and get into it. So we have to design it and look at it from a cybersecurity perspective from that lens. It's not being deployed in a safe environment. And that is a fallacy as well. A lot of people think, well, it's in the hospital environment, it's safe and secure. That is not true. Not from my experience.
Right. Okay. Yeah. In experience, that is quite telling, because looking at the tests you have done and the outcome of them is
right.
Yeah. So with the rise of AI, obviously we see, especially in some areas of MedTech, an increasing number of submissions of MedTech of some sort with AI capabilities and so on. So how does this change the entire cybersecurity lens in any way, if it does?
It adds more vulnerabilities. I think we are premature with AI in MedTech.
Okay.
AI is really garbage in, garbage out. So if your model is being fed garbage and not the right data, it's not going to produce the right output. And then what we've seen, not even from a cybersecurity perspective, but just from an AI model perspective, people always, maybe not always, they seem to design AI models with the idea of what happens when it gets things right. But rarely do they look at the edge cases when it gets things wrong. As an example, there's a law case going on right now where there's an AI therapy app. It can, if you are having mental issues or wellness issues, you can chat with this AI app. There was a case where a suicidal patient was chatting with the app, and after a couple months, the app told the patient to go ahead and kill themselves. And the patient killed themselves. So now the family of the patient, rightfully so, is suing the company that created this app. So that has nothing to do with cybersecurity. That was just a flaw in the model itself. From a cybersecurity perspective, we could inject data into the model and make it come up with that same answer, but we're not even to that point yet where I think AI is mature enough to be used in these sort of settings. I think it's okay for diagnostics, like image enhancement, as long as there is still a physician involved to make the final decision. Sure. I feel like we're driving that train a little too fast because everyone wants to do AI. It's like the buzzword of today, but
for sure, we
don't look at those edge cases of what happens when it gets things wrong or when the model isn't trained properly.
Yeah, I mean, this example is horrible, obviously, but you are right to say that imaging system is one area. I mean, this is where we see most submissions right now for AI in MedTech. At the FDA, I think FDA was reporting that it was like 80% or something like that of the MedTech submission that were for imaging. As far as I can tell, yes, radiologists and imaging professional will still have the last word, but yes, it is meant to help improve the entire diagnostic process, or at least detect early some signs and so on. And in that very case, is there any specific cybersecurity concern that should be looked at, or they are the same principles as those you have described before?
Yeah, there's a lot of concerns. With an AI model, you can poison the model. You can feed it a bunch of data to make it make the wrong decision. As an example, and sometimes this is just based on how the model is set up. But if I have a AI-enabled device that helps with in vitro diagnostics, and I feed it 1 million images of benign tumors and 1,000 of cancerous tumors, it's going to be predisposed to say the answer is benign because it's seen more benign tumors. So that can be done from a cybersecurity perspective as well, because we can train the model to give out an answer we want it to that may not be the right answer. So there's a lot more to AI than I think people really consider. I think with AI scribes, which seems to be the new thing, ambient scribes, it's just listening in the room and taking notes. I think there's even problems with that because now we're allowing AI to make decisions of what information to discard, what information to keep based on a physician's interaction with a patient. And then it also removes the relationship, and now we're back to a transaction because the AI is going to say, oh, I don't care about the patient's family or their daughter had a birthday or their son just got married. It's going to discard that and think it's irrelevant. Whereas in the past, if you go see a doctor and they know a little about your family, it's a better experience, right?
Right, of course.
Now it's just going to be transactional.
Yeah, that's definitely a good point. Yeah. So, looking at your customers or the industry at large, what are the misconceptions you see the most?
3 misconceptions. The first one, most people think it's about the data. Like when they think of cybersecurity,
right,
they think it's about protecting
data breach,
GDPR, HIPAA, the sensitive data. Now that is important, but with MedTech, that's secondary. What's primary is patient safety. If we look at it through that lens, we have to say, if I can get into this device or hack into it, what harm can I cause a patient? And can I kill a patient? So it's not about the data. The data is important, but it's secondary. We have to prioritize things. And I like to give the analogy, imagine you have a defibrillator. Somebody is wirelessly hacked into it. They're shocking you to death. While you're being shocked to death, do you care if they're also stealing your sensitive data? It's probably secondary, right? So it is important, but it's not as important as the effect to patient safety. The second misconception that we see quite often is that software developers understand cybersecurity. From our experience, maybe 0.5% of software developers, like 0.5%, understand cybersecurity. They'll say they do, but they actually don't. And it's a very different skill set. Software developers are there to build a product that is functional, that has a nice user interface, that works. Cybersecurity professionals, on the other hand, are there to break into the product, to make it do things it's not intended to do. That is a very different skill set. And it takes both of those skill sets to build a secure product. So when a manufacturer is choosing a software developer, I think it's important that they choose a software developer that does secure software development. And in our industry, there's a regulation or a standard called 𝗖𝗇 62304. That's what they should be looking for when they go after choosing a software development organization. And I would say the third biggest misconception is that cybersecurity should be done on our roadmap at a block of time. Like traditionally with MedTech, we think, okay, in this quarter, we're going to do our biocompatibility study. In this quarter, we're going to do our sterility study. In this quarter, we're going to do our animal study, or this, 6 months. Cybersecurity cannot be scheduled that way. It has to be from design to disposal. It's an iterative process, so it has to be done the entire life cycle of the product, not a block of time. But people still try to schedule it as a block of time, and that goes back to what I talked about earlier, that means you're trying to add that rebar to the foundation after you've already poured the foundation, and it doesn't work. It needs to be an iterative process.
I mean, Christian, I'm learning a lot through this conversation. This is really very, I mean, for me, very helpful, and I hope very helpful to many who are watching this. Listening to you and obviously getting all this new information and learning so much, I was wondering, you guys do workshops and organize, this kind of educational sessions for the industry? Because I feel that your schedule should be booked all year long to talk to these guys and make sure that they understand what is really at stake.
100%. We do a weekly podcast. We do monthly webinars. If somebody requests us to be on a webinar with them, a partner, for instance, we will gladly do that.
Right.
We just joined MedTech Innovator in APAC, as I mentioned, as a sponsor. So we want to help them as well. And I just actually did a masterclass yesterday with them. So yeah, we're trying to raise that awareness. I think that's the biggest challenge in our industry is people simply don't know what they don't know. And we can raise the awareness, but we also have to make it actionable.
That's right.
I'm a big proponent of not overly complicating cybersecurity, which I believe is part of the challenge as well. When people start talking about cybersecurity, everyone else just tunes out. They get sleepy. They're like falling asleep, like whatever. I'm just looking for an exit, right? So we got to make it tangible and meaningful and communicate at a level where it's understood as well.
Yeah, but this is what you do very well, because as I said, I'm not an expert in cybersecurity at all, and I am understanding everything you're saying, enjoying it, learning a lot, and that's why I'm thinking that you are definitely the right person to talk to. So you talk about your podcast, the webinars you do, so we will put the links of all of this in this video description. What's the name of your podcast?
The Med Device Cyber Podcast.
There you go. So we cannot get it wrong. We look it up, and this is on YouTube, but also on you do audio streaming platforms as well.
YouTube, Spotify, and Apple as well.
Awesome, cool. So you have an impressive journey as an entrepreneur, as a professional, obviously, as a military veteran as well. If you look back at this journey, what advice would you have given your younger self?
The advice I would give is that safety and security are an illusion. So I grew up in a very chaotic environment with a drug-addicted mother, very poor, and I thought safety and security could be achieved externally. So that held me back from really stepping into being an entrepreneur early on. Because I thought, okay, I'm going to go to college, get a 9-to-5 job, and I stuck with 9-to-5 jobs, which are fine. But for me, it wasn't a good fit. They were starting to drive me crazy, but I valued that safety and security because I didn't have it growing up. But what I realize now is that comes from within, not externally. And the reason I say this is because if I would have realized that then, I would have gotten on my entrepreneur journey a lot sooner. But I waited way too long. We all say this. It's part of the learning in life, but it took me a long time to unravel that safety and security weren't really as important, because I'm a risk taker. I like to drive, F4 cars and jump out of airplanes. So it took me a while to get rid of that safety and security perspective. Wow. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Christian, for being on the show. It's been a pleasure to have you.
Thanks for having me on.
Thank you all very much for watching this episode of Amplifiz podcast. Make sure to check the LinkedIn profile of Christian Espinosa, the founder and CEO of 𝗚𝗂𝗲𝗀 Cyber. You can also check their website. Thank you all for watching. Make sure to subscribe, to add comments. We will gladly answer all of them, and I hope to see you very soon. Thank you. Bye-bye.